All right, hello and welcome to Creating an Effective Total Search Strategy. I'm Matt Merzieski, and I have with me Alan Hollingsworth from Calvin Klein. Alan is the search marketing manager, managing all aspects of paid and organic search for Calvin Klein. And myself, I'm the search capability lead at Merkle. We're excited to be with you today to walk you through what's important in search today and why an effective, holistic search strategy is critical in today's marketing landscape. What we'll cover in three pillars in today's session is first to highlight the fact that search has really become a visual battleground. And so it's important to stay sort of close and connected to what the consumer sees and views. Number two, there's really no surprise that with the advent of all of the privacy changes in the world, both from Apple and all the browsers themselves, there's a need to really hone in and focus in on first party data strategy with the death of the third party cookie. And finally, uh, how do we take search together holistically in organic and paid? And why is that important with both of those two former aspects? So we'll begin with a reminder. It's very easy for all of the search marketers out there who are very data focused and love spreadsheets and analytics and so forth to forget that the consumer picks up a smartphone and types in a need into Google. That's the beginning of their journey. They aren't thinking about what listing type exists. They aren't thinking about, if they're likely to receive some text said in a certain way from a certain brand necessarily. They have a purpose or a need. They go to Google. They're pretty much on their phone and they type it in. And what you'll see is, compared to a decade ago, is that there are so many more visual aspects and engaging aspects, such as people also ask, and the map pack, shopping ads, even imagery, of course, against organic placements that have come to the SERP. Why that's important is it presents a new opportunity for us as marketers to think beyond the 10 blue links, to think beyond everything textual that we're putting out, to think beyond, am I thinking about a shopping listing or an organic listing? And to really focus on what are the consumer's needs and how can I visually represent that to them. So one of the things that we're also interested in at Merkle is bringing in research and understanding of also what elements Google's placing on the SERP and in what order, because there's a prioritization of these effects as well. But I think it's important before we start to just sort of call that to the forefront. The context and the intent of the user needs to map to how Google is rendering a search result and start our conversation there. So, Alan, I'm going to bring you in. Thanks for allowing me to soapbox to start there and reground everybody in what sort of search is today, of course, and not forget about the user on the other end of the phone. But as it relates to Calvin Klein, what are you seeing in terms of the importance of search marketing in your mix today?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, Matt, thanks for having me. I think for Calvin Klein in particular, we're really thinking about search as kind of that first line of defense for us to kind of control what our branding is, how we're coming to our customers, and then also understanding, how our customers are responding to that. So Calvin Klein is a pretty well-known brand name, a pretty like legacy brand, I would say. And so a lot of times people are looking for that name in particular, but search and the Google SERP in particular really gives us that a lot of opportunities to get in front of them and control that messaging or the answers that we're giving to them, and really understand how all of those messages are working all together, whether it is, the products that we're putting in front of them in PLAs or the answers that we're giving them about what our products are like or what our new products especially are like. And then on the kind of back end of that, it's also kind of that continuous feedback loop of being able to understand how our customers are responding to all of those priorities, or all of those messages. So we can kind of understand, what a new marketing campaign or a new product line is really like, how that's kind of resonating across our customers, and what we might need to do to adjust for it to better resonate across the board.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear you talk about the customer so much there because, as I mentioned, it's a little too easy to forget, I think, for a lot of search marketers. So let's ensure we're bringing them back to the forefront of why we're here.
For sure.
So if we bring back the slides a little bit, we'll see that one of the other aspects, as I mentioned, there are different elements of the SERP. Google is trying to answer, you know, the consumer's needs and demands. They come with a purpose in mind. They have an expressed intent. Maybe they're looking to learn. Maybe they're looking to buy. Maybe they're looking to go into a store, as an example in your case. So why we sort of track and watch the SERP and its changes is they're adding a lot of new elements over the last few years, and they're changing the priority of those elements, those listing types. And so what we're showing here in some of our research, just in terms of year over year search engine result page appearance, is knowledge graph, in the panel really increasing in visibility and type. Seeing people also ask had a tremendous jump in 21 and into 22. We still see it in terms of nearly above the fold visibility to help individuals sort of drill down on some of those zero click research based interest elements. Why that's important to the search marketer, of course, is to understand that that'll impact your traffic. You could lose some of the clicks that you previously had to your site because individuals are getting the answer by expanding those people also ask questions and getting the answer in real time with 0 clicks. We've seen that increase a bit as well. But yet there's an opportunity, of course, for the search marketer to be the source for that answer, to pull through that click to learn more, because it doesn't always answer it perfectly, and be the sort of authoritative voice on that topic. But then it's all about the priority of these efforts. Should we be producing content around video? Should it be around, top 10? Should it be around, something that can make it into the people also ask area, or sort of go after core blue organic listings, or think about the map pack? So these are all the choices. It's not for lack of data or lack of content that exists. It's really about prioritizing and understanding from the wealth of data. That's the challenge for marketers. So the other reality is, as I had mentioned at the top, is we're trying to map what consumers are interested and what their intent is, alongside how Google is going to render that search engine result page. We think that's incredibly important because it can be missed if you're only thinking about the consumer or only too focused on how Google's responding. But the challenge is there aren't a lot of good tools that exist to sort of pull that end-to-end process together. And so at Merkle, we've created the Merkle Matrix Search Intelligence solution to help bridge that gap. And so we're working with Calvin Klein to refine this. And Alan, I'm going to turn it to you in a minute to sort of talk through why we have mutual excitement around this this process and these solutions at Merkle. Because on the front half, we're bringing together sort of, social listening has always existed, but there's not been great tools for search listening in a way. That is to say, there's so many tail keywords and searches that individuals have, but no search marketer can really tease through that information and gain some clarity into what those sort of ancillary needs are, purposes are, gaps are for users. And in their search journey, research journey often. So we've built a tool in the Keyword Cloud Engine that helps us derive that at scale, comb through the tail and pull out those insights into the intent and purposes of individuals in that long 20% tail. And then, of course, we need to watch what's happening on the SERP. How is Google prioritizing these listing types? And should we prioritize, as I mentioned formerly, video versus trying to gain one of the blue organic links or try to get into the knowledge panels? So Alan, I'll turn it to you and ask, how you're starting to think about managing search holistically, and maybe, a few points specifically to Calvin Klein where that's coming to the forefront.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the biggest thing is just, the starting to think about it like this is really that, all of these changes that you're talking about, we realized we had to kind of keep up with everything that's going on, especially for us to build kind of a cutting edge and more current, I guess, approach to our strategy. We really had to make sure that we're keeping up with not only how Google is changing, but also how our customers are changing and how we're changing. So I think, as a brand in general, and I think like a lot of brands, we're always kind of evolving and changing even our product offerings or our marketing approach or any sort of like go to consumer approach that we have, and really making sure that we're evolving that, but also communicating that effectively. So, like I said, search is kind of our first line of defense there, that we're able to control, what the customer sees or the answers that a customer is getting. But also, our customer is changing as well. How are they searching? How are they kind of changing in their response to our products? And I think we really realize that search is kind of this untapped potential to answer a lot of those questions. So, looking through a search query report, we can kind of understand if somebody is searching for a type of underwear that we sell, we can kind of see what other searches are they doing with that. So, are they looking for an example about how the underwear fits or what the material is like? And how do we go about making sure that we can answer those questions or get ahead of those questions, even with the content that we have on the site, or how we're putting together the visual nature of our site or our products, whether that is kind of the PDP imagery or the images that we choose to kind of supplement across the SERP in general. So kind of taking that holistic approach and making sure that we're getting all of our questions answered, and making sure that the customer is getting what they need from those searches for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And again, much talk about the consumer and their needs. And I think it's important you're pulling together those elements of not just the signals they're giving through their queries, but also what you're seeing in the experience side of the equation on your site. I know it's something we've talked about, and that's important to your strategy as well. So the last pillar, as we mentioned, there were three that we were going to speak to, is in modern search, the reality of the fact that search has become the primary first party data acquisition channel. And the reason for that is, if we think back before the death of the third party cookie, we could all get away with this notion of customer targeting and a shotgun approach. We could, buy and target different lists at, our own will and choosing, and that's no longer the case. And so, by relative importance, the fact that through search we are gaining a first party click, the user has raised their hand with a specific intent in mind. That time is now because I've performed the query now, and I voted with my click to come to this brand's site. So it enables that first party interaction. We still have that high visibility. Coupling all of that together, search has a new responsibility to make use of this interaction. It's often a new customer. Search also has that going for it. A lot of new customer acquisition, as you mentioned, Alan, through the channel, and that sort of first line of defense. But what are we going to do to sort of pull through and mature that interaction? Many people aren't buying on the first go. And so are there, different types of marketing experiences, remarketing experiences that are very tailored that we can now take by a result of this first party data? I think that's the new responsibility of search, and it's important to talk about from a holistic search standpoint as well, because this can be done from both a paid and organic standpoint. And so a clear example of that might be for some individuals, let's say the top decile, we're going to choose to remarket to them very particularly and put them in different segments based on different pages or items that they've seen on site. And we can push back those lists as first party lists back into our remarketing strategy, or even think a little bit revolutionary about taking some of those experiences offline or through other non-search channels. And we think that's really critical to do. The same can be said, just as a simple example, in the opposite, meaning they've performed certain events where the model data suggests these individuals are unlikely to buy, and we're going to suppress them from future advertising. We're not going to put good money after bad. And all of this can be derived and automated by virtue of having the first party data and setting up good automated list management using these CRM approaches. So I think search opens the door to that conversation. As I mentioned, a lot of new customer first interactions, raising their hand, expressing their intent, and providing their ID to the brand essentially to invite that one-to-one conversation back into the fold. And I sort of challenge everybody in the search space to embrace that new responsibility of search and use it for better re-engagement with customers and good marketing. So that's my best practice nod. Alan, I'm going to turn it to you. What are some other sort of best practices you're seeing on the brand side within search, that you've been evolving and thinking about over the past few years?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it really all comes down to kind of collaborating with the right people and making sure you have the right teams and the right people in the room as we're having these conversations. I think a lot of that does start with choosing the right partner. So really working with an agency team that has both of those capabilities, but also those capabilities that are speaking to each other. So it really helps to have that I oversee SEO and SEM. It helps to have those teams that are actually working day to day on both of those channels, really talking to each other and making sure that we have that feedback loop almost that I mentioned, that we're even talking about it at that level. But also, internally, I think a lot of it is making sure that we're getting outside, or that I'm in particular getting outside of, I own SEO and SEM, but what are the other teams or the other channels that even need to know about the different data that we have at our fingertips, or the different signals that we're getting. I think for Calvin Klein in particular, a lot of that has really started with even just like the education of what search is and what search can do for us. So tapping into a lot of the analytics that we have to show, how are these channels working together and individually, honestly. But also making sure that once we get those signals and once we get that data, that we're sharing them out and able to kind of action off of those. So, for example, if we're seeing a lot of searches, like I said, about people wanting to know how a certain underwear fits or how a certain material feels, how are we telling our product or our merchandising team or our site team how people are looking for that and how we need to answer those questions. So we've worked really closely with even our site experience team to make sure that details about the fit. We have a lot of fit guides for our denim products, for our underwear products. So all of those details are ending up on the site to make sure that we're answering those questions that people are looking for before they even get to search it into Google. And then also, like you mentioned, really working with our CRM team as well to kind of understand that if we have some shortcomings in the audience list that we're building through other channels, that we can kind of supplement what we've got through search and what we can understand about those people, to kind of plug into, whether that's plugging back into search or how we're speaking to our branding and our messaging across other channels as well.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, we've always said search can not live in a silo, but I feel like never before has it been as imperative for search marketers to ensure that they're creating those ties internally. And I would encourage people to make it relevant to them. This is why it's important. These are the levers that we have within the channel or the needs. Creative is becoming so much more important with the visual nature of search, and showcasing a simple query to the merch team or to some of the brand team or the creative teams to showcase that this is the first experience that this individual has with our brand, and we need to make it better. And so I think it's great that you're doing that, and we sort of mutually challenge everyone to sort of go on that journey as well. So just to wrap quickly, and to recap, The visual nature of search, it is a Google first, mobile first visual battleground. That's where we are today. Take a look at some of your most strategic keywords and ensure you have the right placement. You can't underestimate the fact that search in the age of privacy is a critical part of your program. And again, I challenge you for that new responsibility of gaining that click and doing something with it personally to the user in the people-based marketing approach. And then finally, don't manage these two aspects independently. The consumer doesn't care if it's paid or organic. Really focus your strategy around serving the customer, as we've talked a lot about today, and thinking about driving purpose to their needs around learning, buying, going, or whatever the right solution is for your business. And Alan, I want to thank you for joining me and helping to push the entire industry forward, of course. And thank you all for attending this seminar, and we look forward to seeing you next time.